Shalom and greetings from Jerusalem, Jane. My voice is still not so good, but I just quickly wanted to make an update. The Israeli military announced that they found the bodies of 3 more hostages inside Gaza. And I just wanted briefly to mention them. One of them, Michal Nissenbaum, he was 59 years old from Sderot, a Brazilian Israeli citizen, fathers of 2 daughters and 6 grandchildren. The youngest he never got to meet. He was taken hostage when he went down to the Gaza border, where his son was a soldier in the Rerim base, and he had his 4-year-old daughter with him. So when all of this is beginning, Michael went down to rescue his 4-year-old granddaughter, but he was killed and his body was taken hostage into Gaza. Then there was Hanania Yablonka. He was 42 years old from Tel Aviv, father of 2 children. He was killed and taken hostage at the Nova Music Festival. And then there was Orion Hernandez Raduz. He was 30 years old. He was a French-Mexican citizen, and he was the boyfriend of the female hostess in the horror video where we saw she was lying, her almost naked body was lying on the back of a pickup truck with Hamas terrorists all around it, desecrating her body. So this young couple was at the music festival and they were murdered and kidnapped, and their bodies were taken into hostage into Gaza, and now the military found them and they rescued them last night. They found these 3 bodies and they were taken into Israel for identification after being in these tunnels for 7 months, and their families were notified that we found the bodies of your loved one, and they can now be taken for burial. So I'm sending my deepest condolences to these families. I also spoke about the video that was released of the military base down close to Gaza border, where these Hamas ISIS terrorists entered. They breached and they entered into that base and they killed 15 female soldiers in that base. And then body camped from these savages was found by the military, and you see 7 Israeli soldiers, most of them bloody, blood in their face, blood in their feet, being pushed down on the ground. And then you have all of these savages around them, fully armed terrorists to the teeth, and you can hear one of the terrorists is screaming at these female soldiers, you killed our brothers, we are going to kill all of you, because they are soldiers. So of course for Hamas they are the enemy. And you can see one of the Hamas terrorists is looking at one of these female soldiers sitting with blood in her hand, with her hand zip-tied, looking at her saying, oh, you're so beautiful. And then another terrorist is saying, you know, they can all get pregnant because they are so young. And then they were savagely pulled up and forced into the vehicle and taken into Gaza. And the dead bodies of all of their comrades, of all of their friends, are lying all around, and that of course has been edited out of the video. And those soldiers, 7 soldiers was taken into Gaza. One of them was killed, her body has been rescued into Israel. Another one was rescued alive several months ago, but there are still 5 hostages inside the Gaza Strip of these female soldiers, and we don't know if they are still alive. And now they found the bodies of 3 civilians taking into hostages taking into Israel now. So when Israel proposed and agreed to the last ceasefire hostage deal, where they said we want 40 hostages alive, and then Israel was said to release hundreds and hundreds of evil terrorists with blood on their hands, Hamas declined that deal because they can't provide 40 hostages who's alive. Right now the number is 128 hostages, including babies, including Holocaust survivors who is still inside Gaza 7 months later. How many of those precious souls are still alive? So in the midst of all of these horrors, the Israeli military released videos of a father and a son, Hamas terrorist from Gaza, who was captured a couple of months ago. And during interrogations, sorry, my squeaky voice, during interrogations, they admitted how they breached into Israel and how they went into the kibbutzes and how they murdered people and they raped women. The father said, the first house we came in, we just killed them, a husband and a wife. We came into another house and we raped the women, all of us. We took turns, we raped her, about 30 years old. The father raped her, the son raped her, the nephew raped her while she was screaming. I can't find the words to describe my disgust of these savages, these Hamas savages. And then they killed her. The father shot her, he killed her, and then they went to the next house and they raped the next women. I don't even know why these Hamas savages are not 5 feet under, why they are still alive. But now, you know, there are videos recording of them for the whole world from their own filthy mouths, describing the atrocities that they committed. So while they breached into Israel and they gang raped so many women and they mutilated women and men, also men in their private parts were mutilated, women's breast was cut off, shot in their vaginas, mutilated in their private parts, and they were burning our babies and cutting people's head off and cutting their hands off, burning people alive, throwing hand grenades into their houses, firing thousands of rockets into Israel. Yesterday they fired rockets into Israel. The government in Norway is saying, why don't we reward that? Why don't we reward the mass rape of women, of teenage Israeli women, and the decapitations of babies? Why don't we reward that? And then we recognize the Palestine. We recognize this fantasy land of Narnia. That's exactly what the Norwegian government did, the Spanish government, and the government of Ireland. I don't really know how to explain how I feel about that. At this time in history, they choose to do that, to reward terrorism, to reward barbarism, to reward the worst atrocities committed towards the Jewish people since the Second World War. To say we recognize Palestine, well, where is that? What are you talking about? Never in world history was there an Arab Palestinian state, ever. But the foreign minister of Norway is saying we need to go back to the 67 borders and we need to divide Jerusalem because East Jerusalem, meaning the old city, the Western Wall, it now has to be the capital of Palestine. It never was. It never was. Israel was occupied by foreign armies. There was not a Palestinian state. Israel was occupied by foreign armies. And Israel liberated that land. It's back on Jewish hands. But yet they want to rip that out of the Jewish hands. All of Judea and Samaria, the biblical heartland of Israel, they are going to uproot 500,000 Israelis living in Judea and Samaria, because now that's Palestine. I literally can't find my word to describe how disgusting this is. And this is countries in Europe. This is Norway. This is Spain. I mean, don't they celebrate Christmas? Don't they open the Bible? Don't they read? Don't they know the history of this land? And then after all of these atrocities, so what did Israel do? They called the Norwegian, from Norway, from Ireland, and from Spain here in Israel, their ambassadors was called into the foreign ministry here in Israel to be reprimanded for this deplorable decision. And then they were presented with this video sitting in the foreign ministry and asked to watch this video of these savages in Hamas, excuse me, my voice, when they breached into that base and they savagely murdered 15 female soldiers. And then you see the horror in these 7 soldiers sitting there. They are bloody and they're sit tight and they have all of these savages around them. That video was presented to these 3 ambassadors. Israel also called back the ambassador from Ireland and from Norway. So it's reprehensible. That's the only, I can't find the words. So in the midst of, we still have dead soldiers. We still have soldiers fighting in Gaza, coming against all of these evil Hamas terrorists who still find tunnel shafts in UNRWA schools, who still finds weapons in UNRWA schools, still fighting all of these jihadist terrorists. And we have rockets flying in from the north, from Hezbollah, soldiers in the north. Israel is still on high alert on all fronts. Israel is fighting on numerous fronts. And we still have all of these precious hostages in Gaza. We have these failing European countries recognizing Narnia, recognizing a land, rewarding all of these terrorists. And it's not just terrorists. I have spoken about this so many times. They have the full backing from 80% of all the Arabs, of the so-called Palestinians, who support this onslaught towards Israel, towards the Jewish people. It doesn't matter if you live in Haifa, if you live in Netanya, if you live in Tel Aviv, and you live in Jerusalem or Eilat. You are all settlers, you are all occupiers, because, like the Vice Prime Minister of Spain just said, Palestine will be liberated from the river to the sea. She just called for the annihilation of Israel, of the murder, of the eradication of the Jewish people. I mean, have the world gone completely mad? What is wrong with you? At least you people in Europe, I'm from Europe, I'm Danish, we learn history in school. We know the facts, the truths, the history of Israel, and yet they are believing the deception of Palestine, about Israel occupying, about how the Palestinian deserves their own land. Deserves? Of course they don't. Deserves from what? Based on what? What do? They murder, they kill, they rape. How many terror attacks has there been the 10 years that I've been living in Israel? How many death Jews have I had to report about? How many rockets have I had to report about? So they deserve a state? Are you crazy? And now I don't have more voice. For such a time as this, sorry, I had to cough. For such a time as this, we will always stand with Israel. And I want to end by saying, maybe I can hear some of you sitting out around the world thinking, you're a good Christian girl. You can't speak like that. You can't talk like that. You can't call them savages. Well, I can tell you something. I don't have the luxury that you do by sitting outside of Israel, by sitting in safety. You don't have these jihadists wanting to kill you wherever you are here in Israel. The terror attacks that we have here in Israel, murdering us. You are sitting in safety outside of Israel. I'm not here in Israel. And with what they have committed on October 7 and what they say they will do again, I can definitely call them savages. I have lived here for so many years and reported about all of these terror attacks. My heart is shattered. I'm traumatized like the rest of this nation. And there is no time to be political correct. This is just too serious. And this is my life. For you, it's a headline. For me, it's my life. For us here in Israel, it's our life. So forgive me if I sometimes is speaking a little harsh. For me, I am actually trying to tone it down of how I feel, to be able to really describe what it's like to be here, the trauma, the devastations, the despair, the funerals, the broken arms, the hearts ripped apart from another disgusting terrorist who just murdered another Jew butchered a father, shot a mother, rammed children, crushed them while they were waiting at a bus stop. And then came October 7, and we went through all of that. And we still have terror attacks. And right now I have red alerts with rockets flying in from the north. So yes, I am not some professional journalist who needs to speak in a certain way, and that's why I have a lot of people following me saying, Jane, you're honest. You're honest and you speak your heart, and we don't hear this other places. And that's what I can contribute. I'm just a regular person who has lived here for so many years, who have cried so many tears, who has been to the funerals of terror victims, and who lived through the trauma of October 7. And like I just said, soldiers are dying almost every week. Now bodies are being found, and we still have hostages inside. And in the midst of this, we have to see failing European countries who knows history are saying, you know what, why don't we reward these jihadists and recognize something that never existed. So now this video became too long. I'm really sorry. It's Shabbat. I'm gonna try and rest my voice a little bit. You can hear it's not good still. It's Shabbat, and we don't even know what tomorrow brings. Rockets are probably still gonna fly. So for such a time as this, thank you for following my social media. Please follow my YouTube channel. Shabbat Shalom. Bye.